Hello, welcome to another edition of the Mistake-Free Real Estate Podcast. I am your host, Marck, and today is a very special day. Today, we're actually introducing our new Director of Property Management. So, Sarah, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Well, it's a tough one. I mean, not many people come into the office on day one and are saying, hey, let's go film a podcast, right?
Well, we're excited. It doesn't get any more exciting than day one. So
Absolutely.
We might as well just jump in.
So it's going to be a great time for us, our audience, to get to know you, understand your upbringing and your background and how you rose to this title of Director of Property Management here at SBD. So let's first of all, I want to tell everybody, we hired Sarah to come on board here truly as an expert in the industry. We have been wanting to elevate our property management company to that next level, and we'll talk about some of the pain points that SBD has been having. But we recently hired, and today, literally, first day. So Sarah Chapman is coming on board SBD Housing as the Director of Property Management. It's a position that has actually never had before. We have had property managers, lead property managers, assistant property managers, but never a true Director of Property Management. So Sarah ascends to this title based on what you will soon see to be an extremely high level of talent in the industry. So again, welcome, Sarah.
Thank you.
So back it all up. You're a Kansas City native. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Raytown. Yeah, right in Raytown. Live in Lee Summit now, but yeah, Kansas City my whole life, other than college. Yeah.
And where did you go to college?
Missouri State.
Yep.
Yeah, down in Springfield, Missouri.
And when did you first focus on real estate or property management specifically?
I didn't get pulled into real estate until about 22 years ago. I'd spent my life working in hospitality management, event management, customer service and sales, and had a friend of mine in the business. And she's like, our customer service and culture are awful. You're great at it. I think you could maybe have a fun career, come join me. And I jumped in with 2 feet and literally have not looked back. So
22 years in property management. I want to highlight on your last 7 because that's really when I think it's certainly what attracted us to you was your emphasis in the last 7. Talk a little bit about who you worked for the last 7 years and what your role was there.
Absolutely. So I came in the door here locally in Kansas City with a company called Building and Land Technologies, BLT Homes. They had about 600 homes here in Kansas City at the time. Had homes in 5 markets, right under 5,000 doors nationally. Worked with them about a year, and then we started selling our whole portfolio to First Key Homes, which is a Cerberus Corporation owned company. And came in, was the local regional director just for the Kansas City market, and within about 3 months under BLT, went up to their VP of the company. Was the only one of us at the time before growth and scale.
Yeah.
And then, we sold the company to First Key and really started growing that company nationwide.
How many homes did BLT own when they went in Kansas City specifically? Because were they nationwide or were they mainly focused in KC?
They had 5 markets.
Okay.
At the time that I joined them, they had 5 markets, Kansas City being one of them.
And how many homes in Kansas City?
They had 600 when I joined them in Kansas City.
So it's interesting how things come full circle. You and I had this discussion in the interview, but they were actually a competitor of mine on the courthouse steps because they were buying aggressively on the courthouse steps.
Yeah.
But they probably had multiple acquisition channels.
Yep.
What acquisition channels have you seen these big firms, BLT as well as First Key, employing to try and scale their inventory?
I think a lot of what they're doing is they are obviously buying off of MLS. They're obviously buying wholesale as much as they possibly can. So there's a lot of work and networking with local brokerage firms, sales agents that have an investor that's really not married with a property management company. Someone that just says, I want to buy in Kansas City. I've got money, right? I've got additional income. What do I do with it? But they don't really have direction. And so they're trying to get into with those individuals, right? And just buy their properties, right? So they have somebody that maybe owns 10 homes, hasn't done it at scale, doesn't have a partner to do it at scale. And now they're like, well, now what? And they'll come in and buy those properties, 10, 15, 20, 30. Or a smaller company, maybe they've got to 600 homes that they own, and they'll come and just take the foul swoop, right? And then grow just kind of exponentially in larger chunks, which is interesting as well.
So First Key, I would kind of put up there as it's a behemoth, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, they now own, are they up to 40,000?
Last I heard they were over the 40,000 mark, but they were buying anywhere from Pre-pandemic, they're buying 1,500 to 2,000 homes a month nationwide. My understanding is they're back up to about 500 to 800 a month right now.
And at First Key, you rose to regional vice president of property management. Talk a little bit about that role and what your responsibilities were at First Key.
Yeah, so in that role, which was the last role that I had with them, I oversaw multiple markets. So I had anywhere between 5 and 7 regional office markets that I oversaw. And that was everything from once the home was purchased, because we were stabilized, we knew what markets we wanted to be in at that point. Once the home was purchased, we saw it through the acquisition, we saw it through the initial renovation, all of the leasing stream, of course, the marketing piece of it, and then, rent collection, asset management, maintenance management, turn management, through the whole process. So really what we did was, from A to Z through our regional offices with support from a centralized services out of our corporate office. Yeah.
Sounds a lot similar to an operation that you've just joined, right?
Exactly. Very, very similar.
Do you find that the same issues that someone has when they're managing 500 or 600 homes are the same issues at, 30,000 homes, or what does your main focus turn to?
I think we're doing the same business streams across the board, right? It's collect money, rinse, repeat. Everything we do, go from buying a home to renovating it to selling it later, are those two functions, right? We're going to make money and we're going to hopefully cash flow on that asset. The difference as you grow is how do you create scalable, repeatable processes, and you really fine tune into those communication pieces internally and externally. Looking at, can one person scale their position? How do I get the most efficiency and effectiveness out of everybody in the organization? Yeah. Some of that's with technology. Some of it's with simply just really dialed in processes. And that's where the difference is. What you can get away with when you can get in your car and drive and see every asset you have, or when you're, hey, this is something that I'd have to get on a plane to make a decision about. You have to just look at it a little differently, but the business streams are the same.
It seems like in property management, technology has had a massive impact over the last 10 years. And most recently, you actually pivoted from First Key and were focused in that real estate property management technology game. Talk a little bit about your beliefs on, or maybe a little bit about Simplify, the management company that you were with, and then alternatively, how that has changed the face of property management.
Yeah, Simplify was very interesting. They wooed me away from a successful career with First Key. But what interested me about that is, so they were creating they are creating a proprietary property management software. So much of what we deal with in the industry is really Frankensteined different pieces of information, right? So how do I market my homes? How do I take applications? How do I manage maintenance? How do I manage the acquisition stream? And those are different systems and processes that don't really speak to each other very well a lot of the time. So we were trying to solve that problem of how can you have from an employee, interaction, from an owner interaction and how they see the data, and as well as just our customers and our residents. How do they interact with their home and how they live? And so it really, our whole concept was creating transparency for everyone in the system. And so as an owner, they need to know what's being spent, how much money rent's been collected, what are my cash flow needs, what are my maintenance needs, and be able to understand what's happening with their asset and really their investment that they're trusting you in doing. So.
Yeah, that really hits home. We're currently going through issues with owners just struggling with the reporting that's coming out of Rent Manager, right? And I think dialing in those pain points will probably be part of our methodology moving forward. Talk a little bit about your belief of property management. Are there some core beliefs that you think make a really good property management firm?
I do. I think, first of all, we look at the business from a couple different sides, right? You've got how do you manage your residents and the individuals that trust you to live in their home? And then from an investment standpoint, what makes the right fiscal and financial sense? Those things don't always match completely, mirroring what the resident would love to happen and then what's fiscally responsible for an owner.
Yeah.
So I think if you're taking the do the right standpoint, the do the right thing, right? If you are buying a great asset from the beginning, and you're managing correctly, and you're doing that with transparency and honesty and education, right? You're educating your residents to say, this is how we expect you to live in your home. Then down the road, they're not upset when you say, hey, fiscally for the owner, we've agreed we're not doing this set of work orders or this, set of, things that you want done. Now they understand, and they're not angry or upset. And so same with your owners, investors. If you come to the table really honest about, this is who we are, this is what it's going to look like, this is what we're promised to bring to the table as your partner, and then you withhold on that, or you live up to that, right? You deliver on those promises. And then if you don't and you have a mistake, you say it, right? You say, hey, resident, we, maybe something didn't go correctly. Let's take care of that. Same thing with your owner. Hey, listen, maybe we've had an issue here. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about then how we don't have it happen again. And that really is just business, right? That's being applied to property management.
Yeah.
But I think, looking at those investments for the long term and saying what's right for an owner long term, to make them the most money over time, is being important.
Did First Key and these larger firms that you've been a part of have a geographical preference? Were they pretty particular about where they bought?
They were. A lot of time was spent looking at what does growth look like. And we made some pivots where we thought we would want to be, and we decided it wasn't a great place to be. For us, what we found is highly accessible is you have to have enough assets available in the asset class that you're going after, right? There's lots of different rental asset classes out there. Where do you want to be? Really, what's your sweet spot? And then can you get enough product to scale, right? To become really efficient and effective at what we're doing. And then also, are there things that stop you from being successful, right? Is it a highly municipal governed location, right?
Yeah, been there.
Been there. Do you have so many steps to get through to ever even think about putting a renter in? You're adding sometimes 30, 60, 90 days to the life cycle of an acquisition or renovation simply to get someone to come in and check the seams in a driveway, right? So, you have to look at that and really, are there any things that are going to stop you from being successful? The best leasing team in the world, but if I can't get it through inspection because municipality's tough. So.
What about on a let me bring it down to a micro level. We've always had the mentality of Kansas City in the Kansas City marketplace that geographically, having a property in an A-class area and even an A-class asset in a B area, but never going into the inner city, never doing the C and D class assets, was something that allowed us to attract a higher class tenant. Do you see that with Wall Street decisions as well, that they're trying to stay in certain areas, or are they just buy anything and anywhere?
I think that each one of the big players has honed into what they want to be. A different buy box, right? So you've got individuals like America Homes Rent, Progress, Invitation. They're looking at that A-class asset, right? They're building to rent in neighborhoods they want to build to rent in at a price point they want to be in. First Key really came in more as a B-class asset. They believe they're a workplace housing. There was a need for that, and they thought they weren't going to have a lot of competitors on the steps buying the same asset. Now they've transitioned a little bit. They've gone more to a B plus, across the board. But I think scaling at that C and D just becomes really tough.
Really challenging.
You can buy them. You can buy them all day long. You can even renovate them all day long. But managing your cash flow, managing your occupancy, managing,
because of vacancy and maintenance, right? And vandalism. Vacancy, maintenance, and vandalism.
They just make it almost impossible to be fiscally successful.
Yeah. No, as you know, I talk a lot about vacancy and maintenance being the two big killers of cash flow. Don't often talk about vandalism because it's just not in the areas that we buy. But when you talk about D assets, that's a real thing. But vacancy and maintenance, talk a little bit about what you've seen and how your firms and your property management companies, what steps you've taken to, really address and reduce those. Does it come down to process at the end of the day?
Absolutely, it does. Process and communication. So one of the things that I loved when we first sat down to talk was talking about those handoff points, right? In the circle of the wheel of the business is they really are so interacting with each other. So from a property management standpoint, I want to know when it goes into contract because I want to understand what's coming down the pipeline.
From the acquisition side.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
I don't want to wait till it's done or you bought it. Like, no, I'm planning 90 days from now, right? So that I understand or have the resources available to turn that home. Do we know that what our marketing needs are going to be? Is there something unique about this asset or, what's coming down the pipe that we need to be prepared for way before it someone walks in and says, hey, Sarah, go lease this house,
Yeah.
right? So vacancy planning starts at the point of acquisition. And that's with what's, are you going to lease it different? Do we need to think about it differently? And then your maintenance piece of that, right, is if you're renovating a house correctly, and you're doing the right things up front to mitigate, just what I call nickel and dime loss.
Yeah.
Right? Nickel and dime loss. And then it goes back to the education. It goes back to educating that resident about their expectations of the home, about, what is their responsibility. Like, how do we expect them to live in the home? And then what are we going to do? And then you have to follow up with what you tell them you're going to do on your piece to keep them happy and keep them in the home. Because the number one thing is maintaining that resident over time, right? So it's that second, third, and fourth year that you keep a resident in a home is when really an owner starts to see the really great benefits of that, right? You've renovated it already. You don't have vacancy loss. You don't have to turn it.
Yep.
They've probably worked through any major maintenance that may have happened. Now it's just something little that pops up. They're obviously happy where they're at because they're staying. So,
yeah. Communication was something that I think is a strength of yours, which was one of a big appeal to the hiring decision. You said something that in the interview process that stuck with me, and that was, and this was an internal reflection after you said something, but I feel like SBD has become too reliant on the digital lockboxes. And you said, hey, digital lockboxes don't call people. They don't communicate with people. You've still got to pick up the phone. And you're just big on telecommunications, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, you're big on phone dialing.
Big on phone dialing. Phone dialing, it could even be a text message if that person chooses to do that. But the reality is self-touring boxes are amazing. It allows one leasing agent to show unlimited homes at the same time. Incredible scalability. But they don't sell themselves. They attract someone themselves, right? What someone wants to know is, does the home fit our family? Great. Fits my lifestyle. But how am I going to be treated once I move in, right? So whether that person's rent is $500 a month or $2,500 a month, that's important to them. It's a part of their income. And they want to know that you're going to be taken care of. And that starts with, like I said, educating, picking up the phone, sending a message saying, hey, Mark, you take a look at 123 Main Street. What did you love about it today? What can I do for you? You have enough homes in saturation in some of these neighborhoods that if that home wasn't right, they didn't love the driveway, or, maybe they really wanted another bathroom. Great. Let me pivot you to something else, but you can't do that if you're not keeping your finger on the pulse.
It's the experience.
It is the experience, absolutely.
It just seemed like you're passionate about creating a customer experience, but not only just, I think too many people want to do it for the owners, but also you're saying, hey, and of course that's important.
Right, yeah.
But the tenants have to have a good experience as well, because that benefits the owners.
Absolutely,
right?
It does, yeah. Because from my experiences, if you start off poorly, whether that's renting a home, walk in a restaurant, whatever it is, if you are not communicated with appropriately, you're probably not going to come back. Or if you do choose to come back because it has the thing that you really want, it meets your need, now you're complaining about everything. You're looking for something to be wrong. Yeah. And so then your experience is just a negative one from the front as opposed to a positive. And if I can lease it quicker, I can keep you in your home. And I've educated you, and I'm not spending the owner's money nickel and diming you simply to convince you to stay in the house, right? Like, that doesn't benefit anybody. But yeah, it starts with really appreciating the customer, what they're bringing to the table, and then just letting them know the rules of the game that we're playing together and the partnership we're creating. So,
you told a story in our interview when we were getting to know each other about just setting expectations and making sure that they had a good customer experience, and that you were not afraid to roll your sleeves up, pick up some poop off the driveway, right? I mean,
absolutely.
Whatever it takes. Yeah, you literally have gone in and sometimes
Absolutely, I have. Sometimes you just have to do that. I think, when you look at, especially single family housing, right? It's not an apartment complex. I can get on a golf cart and just tool around every morning and take a look. That there's reasons why homes don't lease, right? And if your product is right, then it's something else. It's either price or there's something else happening there. And human intervention usually solves a big piece of that. Is it the neighbor's dog is pooping in the driveway every day? Is it, trash is blowing and, it's along the fence line? Whatever it may be, that's an uncontrollable. But if you're not really willing to roll up your sleeves and say, listen, I'm going to go do it myself, or give me that oldest home, I'm going to try to lease it myself, right? And if I can't lease it, then it's not leasable. We got to talk about it, talk what's happening. But yeah, you've got to be able to do it.
We had this director of property management position just kind of hanging out there quite transparently just to try and catch the big fish, right? And it had been sitting there for a while because no one was really had the same skill sets that you bring to the table. Yeah. What was it about SBD that, and I know you're on day one, but I mean, clearly you've made a decision to come and commit to the firm, and we are super excited about that. But what was it about SBD, that attracted you to the position?
So initially with the filing, I was very interested. I love building something. It's the thing that probably drives me the most professionally, is that idea of building something great. That doesn't have to be from the start, but you can come in and continue to build something. And I felt like what I understood is you're just on that precipice, right? Of really wanting to build and take things to the next level, which excites me just initially. And then just meeting the team and the people. You've attracted some amazing talent to this industry or to this firm. And so I was very impressed. From call one with Susie, was incredibly impressed, and then came in, met the team, and really started listening to your idea about culture and about the company. And we didn't talk nearly as much about my skill set or what I did. We talked about, what do you want your company to be? And I think integrity, transparency, and communication can take an organization a really long way. And they just speak to how I do business, and the passion that I love to bring every day into the workplace. And so it just seemed like a perfect fit.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, put you on the spot a little bit. First 90 days, when you come into a new company, what's your focus for the first 90 days, and what do you have planned for your time here at SBD?
Sure. So first 90 days for me is simply initially getting to know the team, right? Getting to know who's here, what seats, what people sit in what seats, what do they do? What does it look like for them today? What are their processes? What are their procedures? You can't fix something until you know what's actually broken. I have a lot of experience, but I don't know what's broken and what's working, right? And so really is the people. And then it's, of course, processes and what sits out there. My understanding is that, there's some things that we can do better with our owners. There's some communication, and there's some transparency, and there's some reporting that we can really, I think, very quickly, it sounds like, make better. Right? Because at the end of the day, we're here for them. We're here to help them have incredible wealth management and investment management. And so that will be a piece of that, is how do the process and procedures help really support that and make that better over the next 90 days. And then just kind of set out a plan of like, okay, once I understand this is where we sit, what's our path to the next level of success? I'm someone that loves to hit that low-hanging fruit first. Are there quick fixes that you can make to an organization looking at leasing, right? Like, and say, hey, can we lease these homes, faster and more efficiently, effectively? And then are there other things down the road that we can really start putting into play that really help over time? Yeah,
and for clarity, I was very transparent when we talked about some of the shortcomings that we're having right now with regard to owner reporting and some of just rent manager and just not being, to your point, there's a company out there right now trying to get dialed in on a rental property management software because that's lacking, right? I mean, Rent Manager is great, and we have had good success with it, but there are just, as you grow and scale a business, there are little bolt-ons and things that you need, and sometimes you're scraping from other different softwares and trying to make it all connect. I think there are efficiencies that we can certainly pick up on with your expertise.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm excited. I think it'll be a fun ride to figure out what works.
It's going to be awesome. Well, for those of you that have been watching and listening to Sarah, I'm sure you can get a sense of her expertise. Thanks for spending some time with us this morning on day one of your time. It's Valentine's Day. It's happy Valentine's Day.
We're sharing the love. We're sharing the love for SBD on day one.
Yeah. Been a good morning?
Absolutely.
You were greeted enthusiastically?
What a great team. But you really do. From the emails, I got flowers last week, flowers and a welcome gift and a handwritten note to join the team, and just sunshine and then really happy people here, it seems.
Good. And you've experienced your first morning huddle.
I loved it. It was great.
Had you done that previously?
At previous companies, it's something that I had instituted.
Yeah. Oh, really?
I met with my team every morning. Yeah.
Yeah, it's important. The morning huddle is a great way to kick off the day, but it certainly sets the tone for a productive morning. So.
Yeah, it's this connection piece, right? I think especially in a remote world, even if you're in the office, a remote world kind of pulls us apart from each other. Yeah. I think it's a nice way to to touch base and say we're all here.
Well, the two big takeaways from this discussion, Sarah, are that you love, setting clear expectations. It sounds like with both owners and tenants, and then also the customer experience is something that is going to be critical. So I am really excited. I appreciate you investing in our company as much as we're investing in you, and I'm really excited to see how the level of property management is continued to grow and expand upon where we already are. I know you've got a great team of people that you now get to go in and lead to new heights. So
I can't wait.
Thanks so much.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
You're listening to Mistake-Free Real Estate Radio, the authority in passive real estate investing. No late-night calls, no clogged drains, no tenant nightmares. Take the passive investor's approach to real estate investing and trust a turnkey professional. Learn more at mistakefreerealestate.com. Until next time, remember, you don't get rich from what you earn, you get rich from what you own.